All right, I'm back. While they're exiting the stage, we're going to invite up a few folks, David Balkin, Scott Ford, and Chris Dager, if you want to join me up here for the few closing comments of today's program. Before I get started, I will mention that we have a nice cocktail bar that's being set up over here for a little reception. So we've learned a lot today. We've been able to share some stories and get a lot of information and insight. And it would be great to spend some time together and connect on that. Layton has drink tickets available. So not only can you contact Layton Johnson if you want to start a registered apprenticeship program, you can see him for drink tickets. and that'll start right after we get through this. So I'll just introduce the folks here with me today. We have David Balkin, who's the Chancellor of Ivy Tech Community College, South Bend, Elkhart. Chris Stager, who's the President and CEO of the Economic Development Corporation of Elkhart County, and Scott Ford, who you heard from earlier, the Managing Director of Industry Labs with the University of Notre Dame. And so I just want to ask each of you if you could provide us a few takeaways. Maybe what are your 2 to 3 biggest takeaways from the day as it relates to how the South Bend Elkhart region could successfully develop and scale these high quality registered apprenticeship programs. So Dave, start with you.
Sure. So first and foremost, I want to thank everyone for inviting us here and for South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership for organizing this. Because if you just look at the participation here, it's clear that we've got our finger on the pulse of what we need to do to move forward, and it's really exciting to be a part of that. I will tell you, one of the key takeaways that I had was the fact that kind of talking to Kara Herring's point about data-driven, I think we really need to figure out how best to provide local employers with the data they need so that it's a compelling story for why they should be doing this. Oftentimes they'll hear anecdotes and they'll say, oh yeah, it'll help my recruitment, it might help my retention. But at the end of the day, if there's dollars and cents that can be saved here, or if there's a way that we can articulate it clearly, I think that's first and foremost a priority that we have to have, because again, without the employers, these programs don't go anywhere. I will also say that when I first started as chancellor at the South Bend Elkhart campus of Ivy Tech, I had a great opportunity to meet with John DeSalle. He was at Hoosier Racing Tire, and I think it was like the first week I was working, and he shared with me the fact that he'd pay a couple, $3 more an hour to employees who'd come to work every day. I mean, that was all he was hoping for. He could train them once they were there, but they had to come. And it just kind of highlighted the fact that for whatever reason, I think there's got to be an increased focus on the importance of even youth apprenticeships, internships, things where people at a young age start learning what it means to be accountable and to own the responsibility of participating in the workforce. And again, not an easy thing. I look at Brandon Eakins and the great work his Elkhart Area Career Center is doing to kind of stimulate the interest in CTE programs. There's just a lot of great ideas, a lot of great people who can really help us, again, align everything we need to do to get things moving. Horizon Education Alliance, candidly, is helping with the positive parenting programs. The challenge we have is we can't just assume that we can start with a junior in high school or a senior in high school and make this work. I think we have to step back and look at the global challenge we have. And, again, whether it's HEA leading the way or the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership, the opportunity is in front of us. Without a doubt, we've got the right players on the field. Now it's just, again, working with the state, trying to figure out how to organize these things and become, all that we can become in this space.
Thanks, Dave. That's great. Chris, what about you? A couple takeaways on how we might be able to implement and scale some of these programs here in the region?
Yeah, it's been interesting because our organization is really the feet on the street, and if we go back, I think about 8 years ago, when I first started to do this work, the best term I could use is how much labor was commoditized here, and there wasn't any pathway or light at the end of the tunnel for our workers. So I look at this, and my takeaway is we're on the feet on the street. We started to scale. So far, it's been a very successful experience and it's being well taken. And I just keep thinking to myself, I have to keep our foot on the gas and keep trying to drive the education process at all levels, because not only at the corporate level, but I think back to manufacturing day when, we sat down and we started to talk to kids about the opportunities that were available to them. And we were at seventh graders. And I thought there was a lot of attention paid to that, and we've seen that coming out. So what I try to think about is how we scale, and how we really communicate this effectively. Because in the times we're working in, there's so much noise out there. There's a lot of great programs and a lot of great organizations, but we have to be very succinct with our message about what the end game is to your data comment. What our long-term projection is, and be providing, I think, real regular data to them, where we're at on our journey to get to be more sufficient in that area. So that's it for now.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and it goes right to what the last panel was talking about, marketing and awareness of these programs. So if employers or incumbent workers don't even know that this is an opportunity, how would we be able to move people forward through this pathway? And Chris, you and your counterparts that are out there doing your business retention and expansion work with existing companies, knowing about this, and then being able to leverage what a phenomenal gift it was from the Lilly Endowment to use some of those funds to be able to subsidize that. So not only are they aware of it, but they can take a risk-free approach to starting an apprenticeship program that's in a field that is going to be in demand and is growing, and high wage. Of course, like those are things that our region is uniquely fortunate to be able to move forward. So
Yeah, the grant's a blessing,
yeah,
for sure.
that's
In
been
a lot
great.
of different ways.
Scott, what about you from your perspective? Talk a little bit about some takeaways.
Well, picking up on that theme related to messaging and communications and just conveying the opportunity, I was struck by Dan's comment at one point about we need to shift away from framing apprenticeships as an alternative to higher education, but as a piece of higher education, right? So it's not like you can go to college or get an apprenticeship. That really resonated with me. And I think as we even talk about, describe the region, describe the different resources, we don't make that distinction. We sort of and continue them together. That made me wonder if at some point I'm always in these conversations struck, inspired by the depth of resources. Also, sometimes can see how it can be overwhelming, right? So many programs and resources here. I wonder if there's a way to ever show that sort of that ribbon of an experience for a student from the K through 12 through all the way through incumbent learning in terms of actually following somebody through that process. I know it's been captured before, but that might be interesting. And the last comment was just also, I guess, myself so often am thinking about this in terms of how do we sell this to employers, but thinking about the notion of parents and counselors and the sort of school officials of how do we get that into the dialogue earlier too. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, those are all great takeaways. And I think about the magnitude of the goal here, and 400 apprentices by mid 2025, which is really just around the corner, and what we can do as an ecosystem. So those of you here on the stage, but everyone in the audience and joining us virtually are all part of this education ecosystem and this workforce ecosystem. And the next question, if you have any thoughts to share of what can those of us that are involved in the ecosystem that care about the workers, that care about the companies being able to succeed and become more resilient, what can we do to help meet that goal and to get those 400 apprentices in place in the near future?
So, I had a brief discussion with Scott about this, and I think part of this is just promoting this continuously in every potential forum we can. When you think about, the Notre Dame Industry Labs, for example, and the great work John DeSalle is doing, they highlighted that they have 140 projects with companies throughout the South Bend Elkhart region. I know that they're very proactive in highlighting, hey, there's opportunities here above and beyond the specific fix, and to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. Say, hey, have you considered an apprenticeship program? I know we have Joey Wheatley is one of our employer consultants in our career coaching and employer connections organization. We have him constantly talking about the opportunities for how they can best leverage not just our students, but students throughout the region. I mean, quite frankly, we're really in a position here where we think, the rising tide will lift all boats. And, when we talk about these opportunities, um, not only promoting, but being able to educate them, the employers, to the fact that there are common competencies that they can leverage without having to start over. With 700 manufacturers in the Elkhart area, many of them only have one HR person. They're not going to be able to comprehend what it means to implement an apprenticeship program. So you really have to give it to them, with a bow on it, and make it as easy as possible so that they can, implement it quickly. So again, two things, this idea of just constant promotion, it's got to be top of mind, whenever we're talking to any employers. But also working together to see if we can come up with a hub strategy to make sure that we're making the most of whatever's put in the repository, so we get high reuse and, ready access.
Chris, got any thoughts about the magnitude of that goal and how, as an ecosystem, we
Yeah,
can contribute?
I still think that goal is very obtainable, because in the interactions that we've had, and I think Leighton would commit that we've had very successful, but limited so far, engagements, but there's an appetite out there for this sort of support that, quite frankly, I didn't think was there. And as we go out to some of our supply chain companies, even, and I think if we go deep down into our supply chain, we're going to find out that they would very much welcome this level of support. And I just think, as David said, we just keep communicating it and make sure that our message is very succinct, and we're tracking our data so that we can show best case scenarios and what the results have been. I think we'll hit the number.
I sometimes get accused of hitting the number or focus on the numbers too much, and I'm going to go against that and just say that not to go against looking at the data, but to pick up on this thread of inspiring the region. I mentioned discussed with Leighton earlier the importance of capturing testimonials, not just certainly from the apprentices, but also from some of the businesses. I mean, it was really inspiring to hear from Masterbuilt today, right? In capturing more and more of these vignettes of people that are in the midst of the process. I think that's going to be a way to I think connect. People will see in themselves and others what those opportunities are. The tactical note is that we have included with Industry Labs kind of a common framework for the deliverables as we finish a project. And there's a big placeholder here for training skills, so that we're thinking about that any business improvement is always what's the skills dimension that helps flag and strengthen hey, this is naturally, let's connect with on the apprenticeships for this one. So
Yeah, it's almost like a no wrong turn is how I look at it. If you're an employer or your company and you're, busy, like he was mentioning earlier, whoever you go to, whether it's talking to Chris or his counterparts at the EDC level, or a university training partner, Work One and the Northern Indiana Workforce Board, whoever you come to, we should all be aware of these great resources and be able to educate the employer on how to get involved in them. And I think that's the thing that's been most inspiring to me to hear today, because I know that this alignment exists, and to hear how aligned we are then with the state of Indiana as well in all of the programs. So it sounds like, promoting these opportunities, generating awareness, and then making sure to make it easy for the companies to continue going through that are a few of the main takeaways that'll help us reach that goal and make sure that we have a workforce that's trained up for the companies as they go through this whole digital transformation into the future. I know we're about to close up today. Are there any parting thoughts that any of you want to share with the audience, both here and virtually, about your final thoughts today?
Well, it's interesting because, as we were hearing from all the speakers, I was thinking about the fact that we're relatively narrowly focused on, people who here at Ivy Tech, have associate's degrees or whatever. But, as I was going to college, I went to the University of Notre Dame as an undergrad, and I had the good fortune of having a roommate from upstate New York who was raised on a fruit farm. And he was in my engineering program, so great to have him. But frankly, he was the reason I ended up going to get a master's and a PhD. He effectively had an apprenticeship program, in his backyard because he could fix anything. Every time I turned around, he'd say, "Oh, hey, go check the car. There seems to be something wrong with it." I could pop the hood and say, "Yeah, all the windshield fluid's good. What else can I do?" But this guy could tear it apart, put it back together, and quite frankly, it goes back to the tactile, experiences. The best engineers, whether or not you decide to stop at a certificate or go on to get a PhD, the best engineers are the ones who have hands-on experience. And this type of hands-on experience is invaluable, in manufacturing, in business. It doesn't matter where. And the sooner we get that, integrated into the high school programs, as Scott was suggesting, I think the better. So, I think this is just a fantastic initiative. I love to see the cooperation and the collaboration that's going on in the leadership from all the main parties in the area. We'll get this done. We just got to focus and constantly be asking, how can we do it better?
Yeah. Thanks, David. Chris, got any final thoughts? you'd
Yeah,
like
I
to
keep
share?
thinking back to 2 points. One, the point that Kara made about third grade.
Yeah.
To me, that was stunning to me, to hear that and how, well, I just think we need to really focus on that, especially in our county due to the level of diversity that we already have. And then secondly, the employee retention element. I talk to a lot of our employees that work in some of our industries here, and they don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. To be candid with you, a lot of them are production employees, and so the element of bringing something to them and showing them a path, and maybe getting them more into a lifelong learning mode is going to be really, really valuable for us in the long run. So I think those are my comments.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Chris.
Well, I think has been pointed out through some of the presentations today, the challenges um, aren't necessarily even unique to our region or Indiana, right? But the opportunity, so flipping that on its head, I think we have a really inspiring opportunity to become that model to help some of the solutions that are created and the patterns that are solved might help inform some of these policies at a different level. So I think we have a real opportunity here as a region to demonstrate what that looks like through the cooperation of all these assets, working with industry, ultimately to help improve the well-being of everyone who's here.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Well, I want to just take a quick moment and thank Crystal and Joe and Rob for your workforce panel. That was amazing. The folks from Indy, we had PJ and Josh and Daryl and Kara, just learning the insights from what's happening at the state level and being able to leverage that and bring it up here to the South Bend Elkhart region is really important. So we're just really pleased to be here and doing the public launch of the Lift Network Apprenticeship Program. There's been a lot of work that's gone into this from a lot of different parties. I'd invite you all to stay tuned for the playbook that'll be released digitally within the next couple of days. I think that'll be a great resource for our employers and help with that awareness piece that we've learned is so important there. So please stick around, join us, see Leighton for drink tickets, and thank you again, everybody, for being with us here today.